let go. You really about to do it? 40 acres and a mule, this is bigger than the music. Yes, we are going to do it because today we are responding to a conversation that was posted on Donnie and Dolly's social media about the Vancouver Canucks and about EP 116. I know that a lot of these videos on YouTube have been in a pretty obvious direction in regards to the Elias Pettersson discourse and what he's done and how he's playing and just the profile that he brings to the ice every night. But this is where we start to get into some of the possibilities here, and it comes to us in the form of multiple conversations. I wanted to bring up some Reddit threads, some Twitter threads, and some commentary made by Farhan Lalji on Donnie and Dolly earlier this morning. Elias Pettersson is 26 years old. He is making $11.6 million a year till the end of 2032. It is a big, beefy, expensive deal. He is a top-paid player in the entire National Hockey League. This season, Elias Pettersson is on pace for 50 points in 76 games played, which, if he finishes the year with that amount of points, it would be the second worst season he had ever had in the National Hockey League. The only season worse was a season where he was under a point per game, but he only played 26 games in that season, so we can kind of give that year the pass. He still had 10 goals in 26 games played. This year, he's got 11 goals in 53 games played, so he is still getting outproduced significantly if you go by a per-game basis when you compare the worst season he has ever had to this one. Elias Pettersson is a former 100-point player who declined to 89 points last year and who has since declined to a 50-point production pace this year. And if you go over to what Farhan Lalji spoke about on earlier today's episode of Donnie and Dolly, this entire video will be linked in the description, as is our ExpressVPN affiliate page. The show is brought to you by Express. Go out there and check out the first link in the description to save some money on your VPN, get some free months, and support this YouTube channel in the process. But Farhan Lalji said this: truly, I believe at some point this contract of Elias Pettersson's is going to get bought out. It's just a case of which team is going to end up doing it and what year. Now, that is one comment in a 2-minute and 7-second video that's pretty good in articulating just some of Lalji's concerns here. He speaks about whether or not Elias Pettersson will be able to get back to the superstar caliber player that he was. Lalji said that he had spoken to some sports doctors about the tendonitis issue that everybody keeps bringing up, and they say that apparently for an ice hockey player, tendonitis would not appear to be as big of a deal compared to if you were on a foot-on-the-ground sport player like a basketball player or a lacrosse player, like Lalji goes out there and says. Tendonitis in the knee would affect those kinds of athletes a lot more than a guy who's going out there and skating rather than putting his foot on the ground. So with these sort of flags being raised, the idea more so lies on Pettersson being maybe not at his best mentally, which is affecting the way that he's gone out there and played this season. And it's why Lalji said the way that Pettersson is disengaging with the play, he is not shooting, he is not moving, all these things that we expect out of a top-paid superstar who had scored 100 points at the age of 25. Wait, what is he now? 26, 2 seasons ago. He was 24. I mean, there's so much that we could have expected out of Pettersson that we're not getting. And it's why Lalji says here that at some point, he believes Elias Pettersson's contract will get bought out. The question is, though, when's it going to happen, and which team is going to buy him out? Let's go out there and read some of these comments. If it's his knee or whatever that's been bothering him, just sit him out. The same crap happened with Sean Monahan when he was in Calgary. He played through so many injuries that eventually his body just fell apart. He couldn't even take face-offs properly because his hips would lock up on him and he'd be hunched over in pain. I know it sucks because Vancouver is in the wildcard race, but not healing these kinds of injuries properly will be a bigger headache down the road for him and the organization. And this is the main response that we are seeing from guys like Rick Dhaliwal, from people in the Canucks organization too. If his knee was as bad as people want it to be, he wouldn't be voluntarily playing outside the season for Sweden. I mean, Matthews pretty clearly is far from 100%, and he went to the USA, so I guess there's a devil's advocate for that. People love to use the whole injury excuse to excuse his last year of lackluster play. When you point out that he's been playing more than even Quinn Hughes, who sat out the entire Four Nations due to an injury, you'll be met with, yeah, but tendonitis doesn't get better with rest. There's a very big gap between letting Petey sit on his behind and making him play high-level NHL games as the #1 center for a team competing for the playoffs. If he's injured, you still shut him down and work on strengthening the areas around his ailment. If he's not even doing that, then he's fine enough to be criticized for his relatively abhorrent play. Top 10 most paid player in the league with less goals since January 1st than Matt Rempe. That's a lot, isn't it? I hope he sees a sports psychologist over the offseason. I've always liked his game, and it's disappointing to see him struggling like this. It worked for McKinnon, so it's worth a shot. There also was some commentary on the R Fantasy Hockey subreddit. Yeah, I scroll this one to try to get some tips for my own fantasy team. But Elias Pettersson, oh Elias, where art thou, Elias? Still hanging on to him and likely keeping him given what he has been and can be, but my goodness, what the heck? And if you scroll down to look at some of these, I mean, he's cooked. I should have drafted Marner instead. For me, shots are always the best indication of future success in fantasy. His shots per game are down by almost 1 whole shot compared to last year. It kind of reminds me of Elias Lindholm at this point. He's not likely to rebound this season. He could be a sleeper next year if he keeps his dual eligibility and falls down draft rankings, though. Canucks fan here, he is beyond cooked. Matt Rempe has more goals in 2025. He's easily my worst player. I traded him away, and yada yada yada. There is so much pessimism when it comes to Elias Pettersson, and Farhan, to his credit, he does go out there and respond to the thought that he had about the buyout. MD went out there and said, I hope you understand the cap implications of a Pettersson buyout. Goes to say it'll never happen in the first 5 years of the deal. Farhan says, I agree. I didn't suggest it would happen anytime soon. He just says at some point he does think that it will happen, and the question is, with which team? With that in mind, let's go out there and take a look at the NHL buyout calculator on puckpedia.com. Yeah, we've gotten to this point, folks. We are talking about an Elias Pettersson buyout, so he's got $43 million in remaining base salary. The buyout multiplier, 67%, gives us a total buyout cost of $28.8 million. But because he's got 7 years left on the contract, it ends in 2031-2032. If you were to buy out Elias Pettersson today, this dollar amount divided by the number of years remaining, which would be 7 multiplied by 2, which is 14. This dollar amount divided by 14 gives you an AAV of $2 million until 2038, 2039. I'm going to be an old man by then. 2038, 2039 is 15 years into the future. Will we see Elias Pettersson be on some NHL team's payroll for $2 million a year till then? Of course, Farhan Lalji is saying, like, hey, it's not going to happen soon, necessarily. If you were to buy out Pettersson when he's got 3 or 2 years left on the deal, the buyout length is only going to be 6 or 4 years, not 7 times 2, which is 14. This is the worst possible time to go out there and buy out Elias Pettersson and his contract. But at some point, you got to think, like, with the cap going up and with all of these players demanding more salary, if you buy out Pettersson and you're on the book till 2038, 2039, making 2-point-something million in the next few years, who knows, maybe by the time 2033, 2034 runs around, $2 million as an AAV buyout cost doesn't really feel too bad. Like, now we're kind of used to the status quo of numbers and cost in the NHL, so this number seems terrifying for a buyout that goes on for 14 years. But if the cap is 100, 105, 110 million plus, $2 million as a buyout is not terrible. So you can let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. We're talking about a Pettersson buyout, man. Like, that's how bad this has gotten. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. How do you feel about this conversation? Do you think it's even worth having at this point in Pettersson's career? He's been playing poorly. He rebounded with a point against Utah, but he still did not look all too great in that one. He looked good in the Toronto game, but in these games right here, oh boy, it's been pretty bad. Let me know in the comments what do you think. I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.